Now, unless you've been living in a cave, I'm sure you know about the Cambridge Analytica scandal. It revealed loopholes in data laws around the world. It raised the prospect of creating strong data protection laws across the globe. Now, you know about the scandal, but do you know who led to the scandal, or rather, who the whistleblower is, who was right at the heart of it? Well, today on Startup Central, we get you an exclusive interaction with Brittany Kaiser, who tells us about the tips and tricks to protect our data. Remember, this is the whistleblower.
The biggest trigger for me was when the whole public was surprised that a company like Cambridge Analytica had access to this Facebook data. And yes, the company said they deleted it, and they didn't. But the public was outraged that somehow a company like that could have access to their personal information through Facebook. And I thought, wow, most people have no idea how much data exists about them all around the world, and that the problem isn't just Cambridge Analytica. Facebook had over 40,000 companies that had access to this data, but it's the entire data industry. Everything you do, everywhere you go, who you see, your entire network, all of this is information that is bought and sold and traded around the world without any of our explicit consent. And therefore, we don't have the right to protect ourselves from being targeted by bad actors.
Got it. But while we have of course seen investigations, several countries really asking Facebook to really own up, regulations, you say, is not really the only answer to how we can solve this problem. So what's the solution? Because all of us have our data out there. It's a black hole, and we're sharing so much data out there. What is the solution really?
So obviously, I think that laws and regulations need to be our ethical and moral guidelines. We need to decide what we want to see in the future, what we want companies and governments to abide by, and enshrine that in the law, yes. But we can only take the law so far. We can't prove that the laws are even being complied with without ethical technology. We need technology that proves where our data is going and that it's not going to be used for purposes that we didn't agree to. And that if it's being monetized, that we will hopefully be able to get a cut of that, but we need to know who's selling it and for how much. But it really comes back to digital literacy. The most important is for all of us as individuals to be empowered to protect ourselves, to teach our families how to protect themselves, especially kids. But we don't understand what our data rights are. Basic cybersecurity protocols, media literacy to understand what is disinformation and fake news, what's being paid to be put in front of us, what is free will and what is meant to manipulate us. All of these things should be taught in schools. But in order to empower ourselves, we need to start to take little steps. If we want to protect our data, we should at least read the terms and conditions.
Yeah, because the issue is we all happen to just on our mobile phone downloading an app, set of permissions, and we are like accepted, and we don't even know what our data is really being used for.
Exactly, and you would be quite surprised to look in your phone and find out that half the apps on there, you don't know who owns that app, where those developers are based, who's getting access to the data, yet you've given them access to all your pictures, your contacts, the data you're creating in other apps, your phone camera, your microphone. To anybody.
It actually is very scary, right? From your mobile camera to your audio, all of it really out there in terms of access that is there. You made a very interesting point on how if there is transparency and if people can monetize their data, that's also a solution. Do you really see that happening, considering, the biggest social media giants of the world have really been vehemently spending millions of dollars to really scuttle regulatory efforts and ensure that the power of the data is not really with the user?
So I think one of the most important points that every company needs to think about is that if you have a transparent relationship with your customers or your users, you're going to actually cut out a lot of the, I would say, cost and time that it takes to do data science these days. Right now, the biggest cost for AI data science is the purchasing and licensing of data sets, then matching those and hygiening them, cleaning them, making it ready to actually do modeling. Now, if I have a transparent relationship with you, instead of buying data about you and then guessing what you had for breakfast, using really expensive data scientists, I can just ask you what you had for breakfast and say you get 20% off your next purchase if you tell me. So think about that, a world that is more transparent and consensual, where users and customers can trust the companies and the brands that they're interacting with because they're being asked, and then that company or brand knows that they're actually targeting someone with data that is real and reliable. There's actually a future where data science is less expensive, less time consuming, and more transparent and ethical for the consumers too.
That'd be an ideal world where, you get incentivized for sharing data. Hopefully that happens. Last couple of questions. You got me scared when you told at your session also that if you've been on Facebook or any social media company before 2015, your data is gone. There's no way you're getting it back. But for viewers really watching this, what can we do now? What are those 2-3 tips that you would want to really share with us to ensure that we are a lot more vigilant in terms of how our data is really being used? What can I do now, really?
So firstly, I would like you to take an exercise when you have a little bit of time and actually read some of the terms and conditions of the apps on your phone. And if you don't like what you've agreed to, and you can do without the convenience, delete that app and don't give that company access to your data anymore. Step 1. Step 2, think about using privacy-based platforms. You can use DuckDuckGo or Brave browser instead of Google Chrome. You can use Signal instead of WhatsApp. I would also suggest not to have Facebook on your phone. If you can do without it, just log in on your laptop, because then it doesn't give Facebook all the permissions to the data on your phone. Just a few small steps.
Got it.
And the last would be to call your legislator and tell the person that represents you in government that you care about your privacy, your data protection, and the regulation of big tech, because that's the only way in the end that we will make a lasting impact.
Got it. The data protection law here in India has been in the works and hopefully will see the light of the day. We've seen how data has been used in the case of Facebook in influencing elections. The problem is more large scale than we think. It's just beyond consumer privacy and how data affects us to how this can really impact governments that are really calling the larger shots. So the problem at hand is really massive in terms of repercussions that data will really have on the world over. If elections are being influenced, that's another level of impact really.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say that we have full freedom of thought because of the amount of content that's showed to us on a daily basis that someone has paid to put in front of us. We've been paid to be persuaded one way or the other, or you can say persuasion or manipulation. It's really the same thing, depending on which way you look at it. And because of the amount of money that goes into not just commercial advertising, but politics, and how easy it is to evade even electoral law putting money through social media to persuade people one way or the other, especially if it's for voter suppression, to get people to disengage with the political process. That's where it really starts to get nerve-wracking and scary. It's great to sign up people to vote and get them to go to the polls, but if you're trying to stop them from doing that, most countries have laws against that, yet Facebook is not stopping that from happening.
Interesting. I'm sure this has been asked you so many more times. You're taking on some of the biggest tech companies in the world. Must not have been easy really doing this. Also now you have your own company where, calling for people to protect their own data and how data can be used meaningfully. Must not have been an easy journey for you really over the last few years.
No, definitely the scariest decision that I ever decided to make, but very much worth it because I know how important this issue is. I know how dear it is to so many people's hearts around the world, what their personal information is used for, and whether or not they can protect their families, whether or not we can even protect our own democracies. And these are questions that we should have been asking many years ago, but finally, it's in the public consciousness. Everybody's asking, is this the way that we want our future to be? Is this the way we want our relationship with technology to be? And I don't think it is. I think most people would like to stand up for their rights and see that in the future they will have more transparency and more control. And if people are making all of this money off of us, that we should share in that value because we are valuable as human beings. And just having a dividend off of a massive slice of this multi-trillion-dollar pie could change a lot of people's lives.
Lastly, before I let you go, I don't think you're on Facebook. So which are the apps that you use, which are the social media platforms that you use to really connect to the world out there?
So, Exciting. Today is the launch of a new social media platform called Voice. It's the first fully blockchain-enabled social media where you own your data. You have to do KYC, AML checks like you're going to a bank, so there are no fake accounts. And you will be rewarded for all the content that you create in it because you own that content. So you're paid for your data and for creating more data within the platform, which is very cool. So the beta is launched today, but I am still on Facebook. I just don't have it on my phone. So I log in every now and then on my laptop, but I much prefer LinkedIn. I much prefer Twitter. Jack Dorsey is a lot more of a moral and ethical character than Mark Zuckerberg or Sheryl Sandberg. So I like to think that he's taking things in the right direction. He decided to pause on political advertising while he figures out how to moderate and stop disinformation, fake news, voter suppression. So there are thought leaders that are out there in the social media space that are trying to make a difference. You know, the founders of Craigslist just created a new social media platform as well. And I think Facebook's going to see a lot of competition in the coming years of people that have decided to think of their users first as opposed to just profits for their shareholders. But we'll see what happens.
Excellent.